Alright guys, TacticalRabbit here today, and the countdown to CWL Fort Worth is continuing. It starts tomorrow at probably 3 PM EST, because it usually starts at around 2 PM local time, and it's also pretty good right now for us in Europe, because daylight saving hasn't started over here yet, but it has in the States, which means we get an extra hour closer together than we normally are. So anyway, it's good for us in Europe this time around. Not exactly fantastic, but better than it could be for sure. So anyway, it's going to be a great weekend of action, I'm sure. Who knows who's going to win at this point? Optic are definitely favourites, but one team that could be very well contending with them is Gen.G, making this change, bringing an Envoy. So in today's video, I effectively want to go through some news and discussion that has gone over in the last couple of days, and the big one was a story that broke yesterday on ESPN that the franchise spots for next year's franchise league, I will leave a link in the description to the video I did on franchising, effectively what it is, the main things you need to know and consider. And the franchise spots are supposedly going to be sold for $25 million. So, well, would you look at that? Let's go through some news. Like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I really appreciate it. It really helps me out. And yeah, let's go. So Gen.G bringing Dylan Envoy. Spacely was removed from the team, I think by the orders effectively of the rest of the team themselves. So I did talk about this a little bit at the time. Whether this change significantly improves the team, it's somewhat difficult to say. Maybe in the long term it may be better just in terms of overall skill and talent. Envoy's been really, really good so far in this game. From what I've heard, they're looking relatively decent in scrims as well. But you would expect that, yes. They were 9-0 at the CWL Pro League in Search and Destroy. Now, you bring in an entirely new player. Can they keep up that run in Search and Destroy? How much was Spacely contributing to the tactics and the strategies on the team is somewhat difficult to say. But on the whole, it should be an increase in terms of the overall potential in the long term. They were having problems with their first map hardpoint a lot. So maybe this will improve them at this event. Maybe it'll have to take a few more weeks of practice for them to get the benefit out of Envoy. But it's an interesting change nonetheless, given they were 6-1 in the league. So I thought I'd have a quick look through the 1Ks from this weekend. Mindfreak and Vertex win the Aussie one. The reason why I'm looking through these is because these are some of the teams that are going to be in the open bracket at the CWL Fort Worth events. If you guys aren't aware of it, the pro bracket and the amateur bracket are completely separate this year. So the 16 Pro League teams are in their own side of the bracket. There's 4 pools of 4 teams. There's no open bracket teams that come into those pools. And then the open bracket teams are in a completely separate avenue to which they can win their own prize pool of like $75,000 or something like that. And yeah, the winner gets like 15 grand, and the winner effectively comes like top 17, right? They don't have a chance to play against the pro teams ever. So these are the teams that are involved in that. This team's Sween squad are arguably favourites. The team name here, 1K series. This is Lightning Pandas, but they weren't using the Lightning Pandas name in this 1K, which intrigues me, especially when we look at a tweet that I'm going to show you in just a second. And the American one, we have, Asim, Celium, Simp, Phantoms, Gravity. So this may well be a team that's attending. It's difficult to say right now who's exactly attending. I'm not sure it's easily shown on like CoD Gamepedia or anything like who's exactly in the amateur bracket. So it's somewhat difficult to say, but yeah, these are some of the teams that you can expect to do something. I think this Zaptius team could potentially be dangerous. But then we have this from Lightning Pandas. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, the Lightning Pandas will not be attending CWL Fort Worth. That's the squad of Hawkeye, Chain, Maple, Dave and PT. And, Chain and Maple were on that Vitality team with Tommy last year, where they came top 12 at Champs. And then, so it's a shame. I've no idea what that might be, so I guess we'll move on. This was another story from yesterday that this new Midnight team of Lacefield, Saints, Parasite, Blast, and Lamagod, supposedly that 2 of those players, and it wasn't Haggy because he was tweeting about it, weren't even awake for 6 PM for scrims. Now, a lot of people are suggesting it's probably Saints and Blast. Well, I don't know. I thought I'd put that out there for some of you who have pretty high expectations of Midnight. Maybe it's time to dial them back a little bit. I don't know. The talent's definitely there, but, well, there it is. Alright, so here we go. This broke on ESPN yesterday. Call of Duty franchise spots to sell at $25 million per team. Now, this isn't centralized on the ESPN website, unfortunately, but, yeah, well, it just have to be dealt with. Activision Blizzard has begun the sales process for creating a franchise city-based Call of Duty esports league, selling the franchise price at $25 million per team. Sources familiar with negotiations told ESPN. In the past week, Activision Blizzard esports executive staff have held meetings with prospective buyers for the league, including existing Call of Duty professional teams and ownership groups of the Overwatch League, sources said. Activision Blizzard has asked potential buyers for a non-binding indication of interest within the next 14 days, according to sources. If interested, Overwatch team owners have the first right of negotiation for their respective home market, year, as previously reported by ESPN. The new geolocated franchise league is expected to start in 2020, the same year that Overwatch League teams aim to move to their home markets, as reported by ESPN in June. Okay, well done, lads. Plans for where these teams will play in the first season of the restructured Call of Duty League are to be determined. So I don't want to go through the whole thing, I'll leave this down in the description box below, but it's key to note that when the League of Legends franchise spots were sold in the LCS, I'm pretty sure they were sold for something like $10 million. The Overwatch League spots initially were sold for $20 million. So Call of Duty is going even higher than that. Now I thought I'd go into more detail on this before we move on, because this is an article from last year from Richard Lewis, what he was saying on livestream, but there's a key point to note here about the franchise league. The Overwatch League owners, according to Richard Lewis, had it part of their leverage. They were offering franchises in a Call of Duty League that didn't yet exist as extra leverage. That was one of the big sticking points for a lot of these investors. They were, for example, we're the LA team, but we're not the LA team for Call of Duty. Just for Overwatch, we want to be the LA team for all Blizzard's intellectual property. They basically said to the big ones, when we do the franchising in this Call of Duty League, we'll give you the team that fits in your region as well. So okay, definitely implying that there's going to be regionality based. Of course, I'm sure a lot of you guys don't like the fact that a team like Optic Gaming, the branding of that may not even exist yet, and I don't like it either. I think that's a big thing about Call of Duty, and I think some of the legacy that they are using as leverage to sell these franchise spots for as expensive as they are is going to be detrimental to Call of Duty as a whole, in the fact that we're going to regionalize and maybe the team names aren't going to be there. But I talked about that in the other video a while ago, so I won't go too much in depth on it now. Of course, the interesting thing here is how exactly have they managed to get these priced at $25 million? And well, it's a lot of money. It's more than Overwatch. What I'm assuming that they're telling their investors is that, well, firstly, it's this idea that yes, you've invested in Overwatch. Now, if you don't invest in Call of Duty as well, then another organization is going to have Los Angeles. Another organization is going to have London. Another organization is going to have Seoul. However it goes, whatever the case may be. And also they can probably say that, well, look at Overwatch. That game was brand new when we tried to make the franchise league. No one really knew if it was going to last or not. And it seems to have done relatively well, at least so far. Then they're probably saying, look at Call of Duty, a 10-year history. This game sells every single year. There's a new game coming out. The game is going to last the test of time. As I say, the yearly releases of Call of Duty are a blessing and a curse to some degree. I made a video on this back at the start of the year that I'll link down in the description box below. And yeah, basically the ideas that I was putting forward in that one were, yes, okay, the yearly releases cause issues for us in terms of it takes several months to get the meta in place, and well, they have to remake league play and stuff every single year, so we never get a perfect game by any means. But at least it means there's a new game every year, and there's always people interested in playing Call of Duty and watching content and the like. And definitely for investors, that's probably something that's appealing, because they know that, well, okay, maybe the game changes every year, but in theory, our investment will still be relatively solid in many years' time, because Call of Duty releases a game every year, and there's always some hype around it to some degree. So there was mixed feelings about this on Twitter from the professional community, I guess. I'll go through a few tweets here. Revan says, there's seen some mixed things about franchising spots on my timeline. I personally think they'll sell all of the spots. Don't underestimate how massive Call of Duty is. There's a reason the game sells consistently as well. And this kind of sums up my perspective as well, because I feel like, okay, $25 million is a lot of money, but I guess they feel like they can get that out of their investors. And I wouldn't be surprised if they could. Activision Blizzard are incredibly good salespeople. They might not be the best at actually like making and running a game, but they really get the job done in the sales department. And the fact that they managed it for Overwatch as well, given the fact that that game was brand new and people were still willing to invest like $20 million or whatever it was, I'm pretty sure they can sell the Call of Duty ones for $25 million. Rated says the higher ups at Activision aren't going to go to their billionaire actual mates asking for $25 million if they don't think they can at least make them return on investment, their actual business partners who he wants to keep around. So yeah, this kind of sums up the idea. I think Joe Inertia of Red Reserve makes a reasonable comment in reply to this. People are saying 15 over 25, like they can quantify how big that amount is from a business point of view. People would have complained at any big number. This was the main series of tweets from Slasher, the esports journalist. Activision Blizzard is looking to sell Call of Duty franchise spots at $25 billion, according to a new report from Jacob Wolf. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Call of Duty team spots aren't worth $25 million, but in the end, it doesn't really matter. I didn't think Overwatch League spots are worth $20 million to start OWL either. Activision Blizzard's operations and sales team may be the best in all of esports. I fully expect them to sell every Call of Duty team slot and get the $25 million. And then he, says our Call of Duty is not looking great on Twitch, and at least he admits to the fact that all the pros are flying out to Fort Worth, so that's why none of them are streaming. Thought this was pretty funny from Birdman as well. 25 million to get a team, yet they pay out 100k to first place at events. So I thought before we finish here, I'll just scroll through some Reddit comments on this issue. And, well, there's a lot of interesting thoughts. 25 million is a lot of money, and it really does show to me that they're really looking to try and get these venture capital investors, which have invested in the Overwatch League, to come into Call of Duty as well. Now, whether current Call of Duty teams and lower tier organizations can partner with some of those big venture capitalists is yet to be seen, but a lot of the Overwatch League teams are not owned by an organization per se, they're owned by bigger groups of investors that have decided, okay, well, we want to invest in esports because we know there's going to be a lot of potential returns right here. And the likelihood is we will lose a lot of big brands as a result, unless there's a possibility that they can partner with these bigger venture capitalist organizations. And it's very interesting to see what will happen exactly with the geolocation, for example, because, well, I don't think people want to see our known and loved brands potentially go out of Call of Duty entirely, because if the Overwatch League owners do really get first pick to choose whether they actually want to keep their spot in the Call of Duty League as they have in the Overwatch League, then I don't know how many teams there's even going to be, how many spots there's going to be left, because as Richard Lewis implied, there's a lot of incentive for these VC firms, these big ones, to, well, lock down the spot that they have in Call of Duty, just like that they have in the Overwatch League as well, and make sure they get that regionality. One thing I thought Lando said on his video that I thought was interesting was he mentioned that one of these leagues, one of these franchise leagues for Call of Duty, or not for Call of Duty, sorry, but for esports in general, has just never failed. And it will be interesting to see because, well, the Overwatch League has been touted as, you know, maybe it hasn't achieved as much as people were expecting of it per se, and potentially the game isn't doing as good as it could have done, so maybe it's on that trend. But it will be interesting to see how this goes down the line, whether this is maintainable for Call of Duty or whether it goes the opposite way and it really helps Call of Duty blow up into the esport that we always think it could have been. So anyway, those are my thoughts on that. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. Like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Slow, just wait a second, and I'm the one who makes the play.
He's here.
You're the best?
Oh, baby.
Okay.
That's his current upgrade armor.
Okay, yeah, just stay there for a second. I'm going top office.
No, nothing water.
I got him, yeah, plant for our side. Oh. Good night.
Look at the fucking damage. 358, 336, 356.
Look at the state of this, man.
Arses. Even though we have 3 kills, Kieran is carrying our arses.
Giving you wedgies, that's how hard I'm carrying your arse.
Imagine having your arse carried, like. Oh god.